Marcus had one thing left, his jacket. When he saw the little girl shivering outside the roadhouse, blue-lipped and trembling, he wrapped it around her without thinking. But the Hell's Angels patch on her father's cut changed everything. Reaper's cold eyes locked onto Marcus. The bikers circled. "You touch my daughter," Reaper growled, his voice like gravel. Marcus's breath caught. Was this gratitude or fury? The engines roared to life. What happened next would either save him or destroy him forever. Would kindness be his salvation or his biggest mistake? Welcome to the Hell's Angels family. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now because this story will touch your heart in ways you won't expect. To my faithful subscribers who've been here from the beginning, may God continue to bless you abundantly. Before we dive in, let's lift this moment up in prayer. Heavenly Father, I come before you asking for your divine protection over everyone watching right now. Bless their families, Lord. Heal their bodies, provide for their needs, and give them peace that surpasses all understanding. Surround them with your favor and let your presence be felt in their lives today. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Now, what you're about to witness isn't just a story about a homeless boy. It's about how one simple act of kindness toward a freezing 7-year-old girl moved a feared biker family to rewrite his future and change his life for good. Marcus's hands were shaking, but it wasn't from the cold. Not yet. He stood outside Eddie's Diner on West Cesar Chavez Avenue in downtown Los Angeles, pressed against a brick wall like he could disappear into it. The neon sign buzzed overhead, casting red and gold light across the crowded sidewalk. Inside, families laughed over burgers and fries. Outside, Marcus counted the seconds until someone noticed he didn't belong. 12 years old, homeless for 3 months, hungry enough that the smell of grease and coffee made his stomach cramp. He tugged his father's brown coat tighter around his shoulders. It was too big, sleeves hanging past his wrists, but it was warm. It was the last thing his dad left behind before he walked out, before the eviction notice, before his mom got sick and the hospital bills swallowed everything. Before she died alone in that county hospital bed, while Marcus sat in the waiting room, too scared to go inside. The memory hit him like a fist. He shoved it down, the way he'd learned to shove down everything that hurt too much to carry. A roar of engines tore through the street. Marcus's head snapped up. Motorcycles. 7, maybe 8 of them, rolled down Cesar Chavez like a storm made of chrome and leather. People on the sidewalk stepped back instinctively. A woman pulled her child closer. A businessman crossing the street quickened his pace. The bikes pulled into the parking lot beside the diner, engines rumbling low and dangerous even after they cut off. Men climbed off, boots hitting pavement with heavy thuds. Leather vests, patches, skulls and flames stitched across their backs. And in the center of it all, the words that made Marcus's pulse spike. Hell's Angels. He should have left. Should have slipped into the crowd and disappeared the way he'd learned to do. But then he saw her. A little girl. She sat on the curb near the row of motorcycles, knees pulled to her chest, arms wrapped tight around her shins. She couldn't have been older than 7. Her dark hair was pulled into a lopsided ponytail. She wore a faded purple hoodie. Thin, no lining, the kind you bought at a discount store because it was all you could afford. And she was shivering. Not the kind of shiver you get when you're a little chilly. The kind that rattles your whole body. That makes your teeth chatter so hard you can't talk. Marcus knew that shiver. He'd felt it on the nights he slept in the alley behind the Greyhound station in Inglewood, curled up behind a dumpster with cardboard pressed against his back. He'd felt it the morning he woke up on a bench near Pershing Square and couldn't feel his fingers. The little girl's lips were turning blue. Around her, the bikers moved with purpose, talking in low voices, smoking cigarettes, checking their phones. One of them, a tall man with a scarred face and graying beard, stood near the diner entrance on a call. The name stitched across his vest read, Reaper. No one was paying attention to the girl. Marcus's chest tightened. He knew what it felt like to be cold while the world kept moving. To be invisible while people walked past. Eyes sliding away like you were part of the scenery. He looked down at his coat. His father's coat. The only thing that kept him warm on the streets. The only thing that still smelled faintly like home. Then he looked back at the girl. Her small hands were red and raw where they gripped her knees. Her breath came out in shaky clouds. Every few seconds, she glanced toward the bikers like she was waiting for someone to notice, but no one did. Marcus's heart pounded. He didn't think, didn't plan. He just moved. He pushed off the wall and crossed the sidewalk, weaving between a couple heading into the diner and a man in a Dodgers cap scrolling on his phone. No one looked at him. No one ever did. The girl noticed him first. Her head lifted, eyes wide and wary, like a stray animal that had been kicked too many times. "Hey," Marcus said softly, crouching down a few feet away so he wouldn't scare her. "You okay?" She didn't answer, just stared at him with big, dark eyes that looked too old for her face. "You're shaking pretty bad," Marcus said. "You cold?" She nodded, just barely. Marcus swallowed hard. His coat felt heavier now, like it knew what he was about to do. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lily," she whispered, voice small and hoarse. "I'm Marcus." He gave her a small smile, even though his chest felt tight. "You got a jacket or something inside?" She shook her head. "Daddy said we're not staying long. He said I'd be okay." Marcus glanced at the bikers. Reaper was still on the phone, back turned. The others were talking, laughing, oblivious. He looked back at Lily, at her blue-tinged lips, at the way her whole body trembled. He stood up slowly and unzipped his father's coat. Lily's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" "You need this more than I do," Marcus said quietly. "But you'll be cold. I'm used to it." That was the truth. It was also the saddest thing he'd ever said out loud. He slipped the coat off his shoulders. The December air hit him immediately, cutting through his thin sweatshirt like a knife. But he didn't flinch. He stepped closer and draped the coat around Lily's small frame, pulling it up over her shoulders. The sleeves swallowed her arms. The hem pooled around her sneakers. But her shivering slowed. Her eyes fluttered closed for just a second, and she exhaled a shaky breath. "Why?" she whispered. Marcus's throat felt tight. "Because someone should have done it for me." For a moment, neither of them moved. The noise of the city hummed around them. Cars honking, people talking, the distant wail of a siren. But in that small pocket of sidewalk, it was just the two of them. Then a shadow fell over them. Marcus looked up. Reaper stood there, phone still in his hand, staring down at his daughter wrapped in a stranger's coat. His expression was unreadable, something between shock and something darker. Marcus's heart slammed against his ribs. He took a step back, hands raised slightly. "I wasn't. She was just cold. I didn't mean." Reaper's gaze shifted to him. Slow, deliberate. His eyes were the color of storm clouds. "You gave her your coat," Reaper said. It wasn't a question. Marcus nodded, throat dry. "That all you got?" Marcus glanced down at his sweatshirt, at the frayed hem, at the sneakers with holes in the toes. He nodded again. Reaper's jaw tightened. He looked at Lily, then back at Marcus. "Where are your parents?" "Gone." "Gone where?" Marcus hesitated. "My mom died. My dad left." The words hung in the air like smoke. Reaper studied him for a long, silent moment. The other bikers had noticed now. They drifted closer, watching, waiting. If you've ever ignored someone who needed help, don't scroll past. Subscribe so you never miss a story that matters. "What's your name, kid?" Reaper asked. "Marcus." "How old are you?" 12. Reaper's expression shifted. Something almost like pain flickered across his face before he locked it down. "Were you staying, Marcus?" Marcus hesitated. He could lie. He'd gotten good at lying. But something about the way Reaper was looking at him, not with pity, but with something like recognition, made the truth spill out. "Bus stops, alleys, wherever." Lily's eyes went wide. "You don't have a home?" Marcus shook his head. Reaper exhaled slowly through his nose. He glanced at his crew, then back at Marcus. "You just gave away the only warm thing you own to a kid you don't know," Reaper said quietly. "Why?" Marcus looked at Lily, still bundled in his father's coat. Her shivering finally stopped. "Because she was cold," Marcus said simply, "and nobody was helping her." Reaper went very still. One of the other bikers muttered something under his breath. Another shook his head, jaw tight. Reaper crouched down, putting himself at eye level with Marcus. Up close, his face was lined and scarred, the kind of face that had seen too much. But his eyes weren't cruel. "You eat today?" Reaper asked. Marcus shook his head. You got anywhere to sleep tonight? Another shake. Reaper stood, decision made. He turned to one of his men. Grabbed the truck. Then he looked back at Marcus. You're coming with us. Marcus's stomach dropped. What? I'm not leaving a kid on the street who just gave his last warm thing to my daughter, Reaper said. His voice was firm, no room for argument. You're coming to the clubhouse. We'll get you fed. Figure the rest out from there. Marcus's pulse spiked. The clubhouse. The Hells Angels clubhouse. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But his legs were shaking. His stomach was empty. And Lily was looking at him with something that looked like hope. Comment below what city you're watching from. Let's see how far this story reaches. A black pickup truck rumbled into the parking lot. One of the bikers climbed out, leaving the engine running. Reaper gestured toward it. Get in. Marcus glanced at the diner, at the strangers inside who didn't know his name, at the sidewalk where he'd spent 3 months invisible. Then he looked at Lily, still wrapped in his father's coat. He climbed into the truck. Reaper slid into the driver's seat. Lily scrambled into the back, clutching the coat like a lifeline. 2 other bikers followed on motorcycles, engines roaring as they pulled out of the parking lot. Marcus stared out the window as the diner disappeared behind them. The city lights blurred past. Boyle Heights, East LA, streets he'd walked 100 times. But they weren't heading toward a shelter. They weren't heading toward the police station. They were heading east, toward El Monte, toward industrial buildings and chain-link fences and roads that got darker the farther you went. Marcus's hands gripped the edge of the seat. Where are we going? He asked quietly. Reaper glanced at him in the rearview mirror. Somewhere safe, he said. But as the truck turned down a narrow road lined with warehouses and pulled up to a gated compound with motorcycles parked in rows, Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. The gate rolled open. The truck pulled inside, and as Marcus stared at the building ahead, low, sprawling, covered in graffiti and Hells Angels insignia, one thought echoed through his mind. What have I just walked into? Marcus didn't realize he was holding his breath until the gate clanged shut behind them. The sound echoed in his chest, sharp and final, like a judge's gavel. 1 second, they were in Los Angeles. Traffic, sirens, bright storefront lights on West Cesar Chavez. The next, he was inside a fenced-in world he knew nothing about, surrounded by rumbling engines and men in leather vests. For a 12-year-old with nowhere to go, it felt like stepping onto another planet. Lily hopped out of the truck first, his father's brown coat dragging almost to her ankles. She wasn't shivering anymore. Her cheeks were flushed with warmth and excitement as she ran a few steps ahead, waving at bikers who greeted her like family. Marcus climbed out slower. The night air pressed against his thin sweatshirt, licking at his damp hairline where nerves had made him sweat. His lungs felt tight. The clubhouse lot in El Monte was bigger than it looked from the road. Floodlights lit the cracked asphalt. Bikes lined up in neat rows, each one polished like it mattered. A couple of pickup trucks and an old SUV sat parked near the building. The clubhouse itself was single-story, long and low, with painted-over windows and a wide front porch. A neon beer sign glowed faintly inside. Everything about the place said, "Outsiders not welcome." Reaper came around the truck, heavy boots thudding. "Stay close," he told Marcus, voice even but firm. Close to the man whose vest said Hells Angels. Close to the man whose daughter now wore his only coat. Marcus forced his legs to move. The closer they got to the building, the more eyes he felt on him. Men on the porch paused mid-conversation. A younger guy put down his cigarette, watching with open curiosity. An older biker with a gray beard and arms like tree trunks crossed his arms and raised an eyebrow. Marcus knew what they saw. A skinny kid with 2 big sneakers, cheap jeans, and no jacket on a cold night. A stray. A problem. A question mark. Reaper pushed open the door. Sound and warmth hit Marcus in a wave. Inside, the clubhouse felt like a weird mix of places he recognized and places he didn't. A flat-screen TV on the wall played a Rams game with the volume low. A long wooden table stretched down the center of the room, covered in plates, glasses, and a half-open bag of chips. A jukebox glowed in the corner near a pool table. Posters of classic rock bands and framed photos of bike runs decorated the walls. but it was the little things that threw him most. A pink backpack hung on the back of one chair. A row of crayon drawings was taped to a refrigerator in the open kitchen. Stick figure bikes, wobbly hearts, a crooked sun over something that might have been the ocean. A pair of tiny sneakers sat kicked off by the couch, next to adult-sized boots. He'd expected danger. What he hadn't expected was evidence of family. Lily darted inside like she owned the place. "We're back," she announced. A girl with braids and a worn Frozen t-shirt popped up from behind the couch, where she'd been playing with a plastic fire truck. "Lily, did you see the big truck on the freeway?" "Two of them," Lily said. She spun so hard. Marcus's coat flared out around her like a cape. "And guess what? Look." She yanked at the jacket, pulling it tight. "It's warm. Marcus gave it to me." Marcus froze in the doorway. Half the room turned to look at him. A woman stepped out from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She looked like any mom he might have seen at a school open house. Dark hair in a messy bun, old USC hoodie, leggings, tired eyes that still somehow looked kind. "Reaper," she said quietly, gaze flicking from Lily to Marcus. "You bring home another engine, or—" "Not an engine," Reaper said. "A kid." He stepped aside so Marcus was fully visible. The woman's face softened almost instantly. "Hey there," she said, coming closer but not too close. "I'm Elena." "Marcus," he said, voice catching a little. "You hungry, Marcus?" His stomach answered with a loud, desperate twist. He nodded. "If you've eaten warm food every day this week, remember someone hasn't. Like and subscribe so more people hear stories like his. Asterisk asterisk." Elena tilted her head toward the kitchen. "Come on then." Marcus hesitated, glancing at Reaper. "You're good," Reaper said. "Go eat." It shouldn't have meant so much. But the words, "you're good," landed heavy, as if someone had stamped temporary permission on his chest. In the kitchen, the smell of garlic and tomato sauce wrapped around him. A pot of spaghetti sat on the stove. A pan of garlic bread rested on a cooling rack. On the counter, a big plastic bowl of salad drooped under the weight of too much dressing. A younger biker with a Dodgers beanie and sleeve tattoos, Danny, according to his vest, grabbed a clean plate. "Load him up," Elena said. "Kid's got that hollow look." Danny didn't argue. He piled on spaghetti, added 2 slices of garlic bread, then handed Marcus the plate and a fork. Marcus stared at it for a beat, disbelieving. No paper cup, no plastic lid. A real plate, a real fork. "Sink's there if you want to wash your hands," Elena said gently. He did. The water ran warm. There was actual soap, not the watery dispenser stuff in public bathrooms. He scrubbed like he could erase the street from his skin. When he returned, Elena had pulled out a chair at the long table. The seat felt strange and solid beneath him, everything too stable for a kid used to benches and concrete. The first bite of spaghetti almost undid him. It wasn't anything special, store-brand noodles, jar sauce, but it was hot and seasoned and made just for the people in this room. It tasted like he'd been let inside something. Conversations hummed around him, quieter now, but not entirely hushed. "Kid can eat," someone commented softly. "Let him," another voice replied. "Look at him. He's skin and bones." Reaper sat down across from Marcus, a can of root beer in front of him. He cracked it open but didn't drink, just watched the boy for a while as he ate. "How long you been on the street?" Reaper asked eventually. Marcus swallowed. Since September." "Where were you before that?" "East LA apartment by a laundromat. Second floor." "Who were you with?" "My mom." The fork trembled in his hand. "Until she got sick." Elena quietly took a seat a little down the table, listening without staring. Reaper's voice softened by a fraction. "What happened to her?" "Hospital said her heart was weak. She kept working anyway." Marcus's eyes stayed fixed on his plate. Bills kept coming. Dad was gone already. She didn't come home one day." The room didn't go silent, but the noise shifted. Less laughter, more weight. "They find you any family?" Elena asked gently. He shook his head. "I heard one social worker say my file fell through the cracks." He forced a humorless half-smile. "Guess I did too." Reaper's jaw tightened. Axel, the gray-bearded biker who'd been watching from the porch, made his way over, arms crossed. Expression skeptical, but not cruel. He nodded at Marcus. So you just what? Axel asked. Hike around downtown, giving away clothing you can't afford to lose? Marcus stiffened. She was cold. Axel tilted his head toward Lily, who was now sprawled on the rug with Savannah, the toy truck between them. You know whose kid that is? Reaper's, Marcus said. She said Daddy. Axel snorted. Smart. Reaper cut him a look. You got a point? Yeah. Axel said, eyes back on Marcus. You scared? At all? You see the patches. You know what people say about us. Marcus thought about the sidewalk, the way people had hurried past the bikes without meeting anyone's eyes. He thought about the woman who had pulled her son closer when the engines roared. He swallowed. I was scared, he admitted, but I was more scared of her freezing. Reaper's gaze softened almost imperceptibly. If you've ever walked past someone hurting and looked away, don't do it here. Asterisk asterisk. Like and subscribe so you don't miss the next part of Marcus's journey. Elena cleared her throat. He's a kid, Axel. Not a stray dog we picked up behind a bar. Axel grumbled something under his breath, but didn't push further. Reaper leaned forward, forearms on the table. Here's the deal, Marcus. You're inside tonight. You're safe here. No one's putting you back out on the sidewalk. The words made the air thicker. But we gotta be smart about this, Reaper continued. We're not a shelter. We're not exactly on social services Christmas card list. You latch onto us and the wrong people find out. He shook his head. They'll use you as a weapon against us. Marcus's hand went cold around his fork. I don't want to cause trouble. You didn't, Reaper said. The trouble's already there. We're just deciding if we're the kind of people who walk past it, or the kind who stop. He held Marcus's gaze, not looking away. I saw what you did for Lily, Reaper said. You gave your last good thing to a kid you didn't know. No cameras, no audience. That tells me something. What? Marcus whispered. That you're not just some kid trying to work an angle, Reaper said. You're someone who knows what it feels like to be left out in the cold, and decided you wouldn't do that to somebody else. Marcus's vision blurred for a second. He blinked hard. Elena reached for a napkin and gently slid it closer to him. You're allowed to cry here, you know, she said softly. Doesn't make you weak. Just makes you human. He didn't cry. Not yet. But the tight knot in his chest loosened a millimeter. Reaper pushed his chair back slightly. Finish eating. Then Elena will show you the shower and the spare room. Spare room? Marcus echoed. Elena smiled. Guest room. It's small, but it has a bed and clean sheets. Way better than a bus stop bench, I promise. A bed. The last bed he'd slept in had hospital sheets and a monitor beeping in the next room. He'd sat in the waiting area chair, head propped against the wall, while a nurse said, We'll come get you when you can go in. Nobody ever came. He forced himself back to the present. Why are you doing this? Marcus asked. The question came out sharper than he intended. You don't even know me. Reaper's answer came without hesitation. We know enough. We know you're a kid. We know you're alone. We know you gave my daughter your coat. His voice softened. That's enough for tonight. Elena stood. Come on, she said. Let's get you cleaned up. The hallway was dimmer, quieter. Their footsteps echoed on the worn floorboards. Marcus glanced at the framed photos as they passed. The club parked along the Pacific Coast Highway, the Santa Monica Pier in the background, a 4th of July barbecue in someone's backyard, sparklers in kids' hands. Lily at maybe 4 years old, asleep on Reaper's chest while he sat in a lawn chair, head tilted back, a rare peaceful expression on his face. You look like you've never seen family photos before, Elena said gently. I have, Marcus said. Just not like this. Like what? Like they belong together, he murmured. She didn't argue. The bathroom was small but clean. A faded blue shower curtain. A mirror with a tiny crack in one corner. Toothbrushes in a cup, 2 pink, 1 blue. There's a lock, Elena said. Use it. You're safe here, but you're allowed to feel safe too. She set a folded towel on the counter, along with a navy t-shirt and gray sweatpants. These should fit close enough. We keep extras for friends who crash here. Friends, not strays, not charity cases. Thank you, Marcus said. She paused at the door. You did something tonight that most adults wouldn't do, Elena said. You saw a cold kid and you acted. Let us act for you now, okay? He nodded, throat tight. When the door clicked shut and the lock slid into place, the quiet pressed in. Marcus stared at himself in the mirror for a long beat, at the dirt smudges, at the tired eyes, at the too old expression on a too young face. Steam curled as the hot water came on. He stepped under it, and for the first time in months, the shivering stopped for a reason that wasn't survival. It stopped because he was actually warm. He scrubbed until his skin felt raw and new. When he emerged, dressed in the clean clothes, his old ones folded under his arm, he felt like he'd been scraped down to someone he almost recognized. Back in the main room, the atmosphere had shifted from curious to almost casual. A few bikers were playing pool. Someone had turned up the game on TV. Lily and Savannah had built a garage for the toy truck out of couch cushions. Lily spotted him first. "Marcus!" she shouted, scrambling to her feet. The coat swamped her, but she refused to take it off. "You look different." "Better?" he asked. She nodded solemnly. "You look like you could be in a school picture." The comment hurt and healed at the same time. Reaper motioned him over to the table again. This time, Elena joined them without hovering. Axel sat nearby, pretending not to listen. "So," Reaper began, "here's what we're thinking." Marcus braced himself. "Tonight, you stay in the guest room," Reaper said. "Tomorrow, Elena calls someone she knows at a community center. They help kids like you find actual families. People with spare rooms and steady jobs, not just guys with motorcycles and soft hearts." A couple of bikers snorted at that, but no one objected. "Will they even want me?" Marcus asked before he could stop himself. "We don't know," Elena said honestly. "But we do know this. You're not going back to the sidewalk while we figure it out. And if they say no?" Reaper's gaze didn't flinch. "Then we find another way. I'm not dropping you off at some overcrowded shelter and calling it a day." "Why?" Marcus asked. The word came out small. "Why do you care this much?" Reaper looked toward Lily, now back on the floor, the coat riding up as she reached for the truck. "Because that kid is my whole world," he said quietly. "And tonight, you treated her like she mattered when nobody else did. I can't ignore that." His eyes moved back to Marcus. "Because I've been the guy people gave up on. And I'm not doing that to you." The words anchored in Marcus's chest, heavy and strange and almost painful. "You got school tomorrow?" Axel asked, voice gruff. Marcus let out something between a laugh and a breath. "I haven't had school in months." "Well," Elena said, "if we have our way, that changes. Not overnight, but soon." The idea of homework, desks, teachers, things he used to complain about, suddenly felt like treasure. "You're gonna need rest," Reaper said, pushing his chair back. "This place never really sleeps, but you can." Elena walked Marcus down the hall again, this time to a small room at the end. A twin bed against the wall, a worn dresser, a lamp with a slightly crooked shade. On the nightstand, someone had left a bottle of water and a small pack of crackers, like they knew kids got hungry again after big meals. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't big, but it was his. For tonight. Elena leaned in the doorway. "You need anything? Just yell. Sound carries in this old place." "Okay," Marcus said. She hesitated. "You're not a burden, Marcus," she added quietly. "Reaper might act like a grizzly bear, but him bringing you here? That was the easiest decision he's made in a long time." He didn't know what to do with that, so he just nodded. When she left, he sat on the bed and bounced lightly. The mattress held. The sheets smelled like laundry detergent and fabric softener, not bleach and fear. He lay back slowly, staring at the ceiling. Voices drifted down the hall. Reaper's low rumble, Elena's steady tone, Axel's gravelly mutter. He couldn't make out the words, but he heard the shape of concern. He rolled onto his side. Through the thin wall, he could just faintly hear Lily laughing at something on the TV. His coat, the one thing tying him to his old life, was wrapped around somebody safe, somebody warm, somebody who felt like a little sister he'd just met. His eyes burned. This time, he didn't blame the steam. He let the tears come, silent and hot, soaking the pillowcase. He cried for his mom, for the apartment with the crooked blinds, for the school he used to hate and now missed, for every night he'd spent pretending a bus stop was temporary. And somewhere in the middle of all that, he fell asleep. In the main room, under dimmed lights, Reaper sat at the table with Elena and Axel. An old photograph lay between them. A younger Reaper, no gray in his beard, standing next to a woman with tired eyes and a familiar jawline. A toddler with messy hair sat on her hip. "You see it?" Elena asked quietly. Reaper nodded, eyes on the photo, then on the hallway where Marcus slept. "Same eyes," he murmured. Same way he squared his shoulders when somebody questioned him. "You think?" Axel started. "I don't know what I think yet," Reaper cut in. "All I know is a kid who looks like someone I once failed just walked into my life and gave my daughter his last coat." He rubbed a hand over his face. "Tomorrow, we call Elena's friend," he said. "We see what we can do legal. In the meantime, he sleeps under our roof. He eats at our table. He doesn't wonder if anyone cares whether he wakes up." Elena nodded. "That, at least, we can promise." Down the hall, Marcus shifted in his sleep, brow furrowing briefly before smoothing out. He didn't know about the photo. He didn't know about the plans being made in hushed voices around a worn wooden table. He only knew one thing. For the first time in a very long time, he didn't fall asleep wondering where he'd be chased away from in the morning. And somewhere, buried deep under exhaustion and grief, a fragile thought flickered to life, quiet but persistent. Maybe this wasn't an accident. Maybe this was the first night of something new. Marcus woke to the smell of coffee and bacon and the terrifying realization that, for once, he hadn't woken up cold. For a second, he didn't know where he was. The ceiling above him wasn't stained concrete or chipped paint from a shelter bunk. It was plain, off-white, with a faint crack running from the corner, boring and safe in a way his life hadn't been in a long time. He pushed himself up on his elbows. The room was small but real. A dresser, a lamp, the blanket tangled around his legs. He pressed his palm into the mattress just to feel it push back. This wasn't a dream. Voices drifted down the hallway, muffled, overlapping. A pan sizzled in the distance. Someone laughed. Something thumped against wood. The clubhouse. Last night came back in pieces. The neon outside Eddie's diner. Lily's blue lips. His father's coat sliding off his shoulders and onto hers. Reaper's unreadable eyes. Elena's soft voice. Hot water on his skin. Clean clothes. A bed. He swung his feet to the floor. The boards were cool, but not freezing. His old clothes, washed and folded, sat on the dresser. Someone had even patched a small hole in his t-shirt. For a moment, Marcus just sat there, fingers gripping the edge of the bed, fighting a familiar fear. If he walked out there, would it all be gone? Would they look at him differently in daylight? He forced himself to stand. The world didn't tilt. The room stayed solid. He opened the door. The hallway was softer in the morning. Light seeped in from a high window near the back, dust floating lazily in the beam. A child's laughter bounced off the walls. Lily, definitely. Her squeal unmistakable. Marcus followed the sound. The main room looked different under daylight. Less mysterious, more lived in. The TV was off. The long table was cleared except for a few mugs and a cereal box. The jukebox slept dark in the corner. Elena stood at the stove, flipping pancakes in a worn skillet. A coffee maker gurgled on the counter. Lily and Savannah sat at the table, arguing over which cartoon character was stronger. A couple of bikers nursed coffee, hair messy, eyes still waking up. Reaper sat at the far end of the table, arms folded, watching everything with the quiet alertness of someone who'd slept lighter than he pretended. Lily spotted Marcus first. "You're awake," she shouted, nearly knocking her chair over as she stood. The coat, his coat, was draped across the back of her chair now, but she kept one hand on it like she was afraid it would vanish. All eyes shifted to him. Marcus froze for half a second, then forced his feet forward. "Morning," Elena said, like this was totally normal. Like 12-year-old boys always appeared in their kitchen after being found on sidewalks. "You eat pancakes?" "Yeah," Marcus said, voice rough with sleep. "Yes, ma'am." She smiled at the ma'am. "Sit. Plate's coming." He slid into a chair. Lily plopped into the one beside him, scooting close enough that their shoulders brushed. "I saved you the syrup that doesn't taste weird," she whispered, as if confiding a major secret. "The store-brand one is gross. Daddy buys the good one when he remembers." Marcus almost laughed. The tightness in his chest loosened another fraction. Reaper cleared his throat. Sleep okay? Marcus looked up. Reaper's eyes were steady, unreadable, but not cold. Yeah, Marcus said. Ah, yeah? Thank you. Reaper nodded once, like they'd just confirmed a business transaction. But Marcus didn't miss the tiny flicker of relief that passed over his face. If you've ever taken a warm bed for granted, remember kids like Marcus exist. Like and subscribe so this kind of story never gets ignored. Elena slid a plate in front of him. 3 pancakes, butter melting in the middle, a strip of bacon balanced on top. It smelled like every weekend morning he'd ever wished for. Eat, she said. Then we talk. He didn't need to be told twice. The first bite was almost too much, sweet, warm, soft. He forced himself not to inhale the food like he might never see another meal. You always feed random kids who show up? He asked between bites. Only the ones our kids bring home, Elena said lightly, nodding toward Lily. Lily grinned. I didn't bring you home. Daddy did. Reaper smirked. You think I'd have stopped if you hadn't looked at that boy like he hung the moon? Lily considered this. Maybe. She turned back to Marcus. Are you staying forever? The room went quieter. Utensils paused. Even the coffee maker seemed to hush. Lily, Elena said gently. We talked about this. I know, Lily mumbled, tracing a circle on the table. Nothing's forever. Her voice hit something raw inside Marcus. He swallowed hard, the food suddenly thick in his throat. Reaper leaned forward, hands clasped. That's what we got to talk about, kid. Marcus set his fork down. Okay. Reaper glanced at Elena, then back at Marcus. Last night, we said we'd try to find you something better than a bus stop. That hasn't changed. Elena nodded. I called someone early this morning. Friend of mine named Monica. She runs a community center in Boyle Heights. They do outreach, and sometimes they connect kids with host families, people who want to help but don't know how to find the ones who need it most. And? Marcus asked, heart thudding. She said she wants to meet you, Elena said. Today, if you're up for it. Today. Reaper shrugged. World moves fast when someone actually cares. The idea of another stranger, another evaluation, made Marcus's stomach twist. What if this Monica took one look at him and saw what everyone else did? A problem? A case file? Too much? What if she says I don't fit? He asked quietly. Reaper's eyes didn't leave his. Then she's wrong about you. And we keep looking. Why? Because you gave your last warm thing to my daughter when nobody was watching, Reaper said. That means you're our responsibility now, whether you like it or not. Something hot pricked Marcus's eyes. He blinked hard. Lily swung her legs. Is Monica nice? She's tough, Elena said. But in the good way. The I won't give up on you even when you've given up on yourself way. Savannah piped up. She brings donuts sometimes. That too, Elena agreed. Donuts. Tough love. The possibility of a home that wasn't temporary. It sounded like a fairy tale and a court hearing smashed together. After breakfast, Elena found a worn but clean hoodie in a donation box, a dark gray one with a faded California logo, and tossed it to Marcus. Put that on, she said. We're not repeating the no-coat episode. He caught it, fingers tracing the cracked letters. It wasn't his father's jacket, but it was warm. And it was his, at least for now. Lily tugged at his sleeve. You coming back after you talked to Monica? I don't know, Marcus answered honestly. You better, she muttered. We haven't finished our game. What game? The one where you're the mechanic and fix the truck and I drive it to Disneyland, she said, as if it were obvious. You promised last night. He hadn't exactly, but he'd nodded when she'd talked about rides and churros and fireworks, because it had made her smile. I'll try, he said. She nodded, accepting that as binding contract. They drove in Elena's beat-up minivan instead of the truck. Reaper insisted on following on his bike, just behind them, as if daring traffic to separate them. The city slid by, freeways, graffiti-tagged walls, narrow streets with taco trucks on corners, kids in uniforms walking in groups toward schools he wasn't part of. Boyle Heights buzzed with late-morning life. Street vendors, laundry flapping on balcony lines. Murals on brick walls telling stories Marcus didn't know but could feel. The community center looked like a converted storefront, glass doors, a faded sign that read East Side Futures, colorful posters taped up about tutoring, food drives, and after-school programs. Elena parked. You ready? No, Marcus said. Then he took a breath. But I'll go anyway. That's all brave is, she said. Doing it while you're scared. Inside, the center smelled like coffee and paper and the faint tang of cleaning spray. Kids' voices echoed from a room down the hall. A bulletin board covered in flyers and photos lined one wall. College acceptance letters pinned next to snapshots of smiling teens in caps and gowns. A woman in her 40s with curly hair and glasses looked up from the front desk computer. She wore a t-shirt with the center's logo and a denim jacket, sleeves rolled up. Elena, she said, standing. You got here fast. Monica, Elena replied. This is Marcus. Monica's gaze landed on him, quick and sharp and kind. She took him in without lingering on the worn shoes or the uncertainty in his shoulders. Hey, Marcus, she said. I'm glad you came. He shrugged, unsure what to do with the statement. Hi. You want water? Juice? She asked. We buy the good juice, not the 10% actual fruit stuff. He almost smiled. Water's fine. She grabbed a small bottle from a cooler and handed it to him. Let's talk in my office, yeah? Elena squeezed his shoulder. We'll be right out here. Reaper, who had just stepped in, met Marcus's eyes. Door stays open, he said quietly. It wasn't a request. Monica nodded. Always does. Her office was small but bright. Plants in mismatched pots, more bulletin boards, a framed quote on the wall. No one leaves here the same way they came. She sat behind a cluttered desk, gesturing to the chair opposite. So, she said, leaning back. Elena told me a little, but I'd rather hear it from you. Treat this like, I don't know, like you're telling someone a story. You know stories. Marcus nodded. I watch a lot. Good, she said. Then just tell me yours. Start wherever feels true. He hesitated. Where was the beginning? The night his dad left? The first eviction notice? The hospital? The sidewalk outside Eddie's diner? He took a breath. My name's Marcus. I'm 12. My mom worked at a laundromat in East LA. She got sick. We couldn't pay the bills. My dad walked out before that. Took what little money we had left. Monica's eyes were steady, no pity, just presence. After she died, they said they were looking into options for me, he continued. But they didn't call. Or maybe they did and nobody answered, because I wasn't there anymore. Where were you? Bus stops, he said. Train stations. Behind restaurants. Anywhere I could sleep without getting kicked awake too fast. And the coat? She asked gently. He looked at his hands. It was my dad's. The last thing that still smelled like home. I kept it with me everywhere. Last night, outside Eddie's, this little girl was freezing. No coat. She was shaking so hard. He shrugged. I couldn't not. You gave it to her, Monica finished. He nodded. She stopped shivering. And then, her dad saw, Marcus said. He's different. Monica's lips twitched. I've met Reaper. Different is one word. He brought me to the clubhouse. Marcus went on. They fed me. Let me shower. Gave me a bed. And that scared you. A little, Marcus admitted. But not as much as sleeping alone again. Monica considered him for a long moment. He had the sense she was measuring not just his words, but the spaces between them. You know what the hardest thing is about kids like you? She asked finally. He braced himself. What? You think you're a problem that needs to be managed instead of a person who deserves to be helped, she said. You keep waiting for people to decide you're too much work. She wasn't wrong. If you've ever judged a kid before knowing their story, this is your chance to do better. Like and subscribe so more people see what real compassion looks like. So here's what I see. Monica continued, leaning forward. I see a kid who survived months alone without getting pulled into stealing or worse. A kid who had almost nothing and still chose to give something away to keep someone else warm. That's not a problem. That's a miracle. He swallowed hard. I don't feel like a miracle. Miracles rarely do, she said. Now, about practical stuff. You want to be in school again? The question hit him in a place that still remembered homework complaints and pop quizzes and Mrs. Decker's endless lectures in math. Yeah, he said quietly. I do. You willing to live in a house with rules? What kind of rules? Curfew. Homework. Chores. No disappearing without telling anyone. Adults who ask annoying questions like, "How was your day?" she said, ticking them off on her fingers. It sounded incredible and terrifying. "I think so," he said. She smiled. "Good. Because I've got a family in mind. They've been talking about fostering, but weren't sure how to get started. They live in Monterey Park. Small house, big yard, 2 dogs, no kids yet. They come to our volunteer days all the time." "What if they don't like me?" Marcus asked. "Then they don't deserve you," Monica said simply. "But my gut says they will." They asked specifically if we had any kids who never really got a chance to exhale. Their words. "You fit that, yeah?" He let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Yeah. I'm not promising anything today," she added. "We'll do this right. Home visits, paperwork. In the meantime, you stay with the angels." He tensed. "Won't that be a problem?" "Legally," Monica said. "It's gray. Morally, not for me. I care if you're safe, fed, and not sleeping under a freeway. And right now, that's exactly what they're giving you." A knock on the doorframe made them both look up. Reaper leaned there, arms crossed, pretending he hadn't been listening. "We good?" he asked. Monica stood. "We're on the path," she said. "Not finished, but started." Reaper nodded once. "Kid." Marcus rose, legs a little shaky. "You want this?" Reaper asked. "School? House? People who'll drive you crazy asking about your grades." "Yeah," Marcus said. I want to try." Reaper's face didn't change much, but his shoulders dropped slightly, tension easing. "Then we'll keep you standing till it happens." On the ride back, the city looked different. The same cracked sidewalks, the same graffiti, the same transit stops where he'd once slept. But now, they were places he'd survived, not places he had to go back to. At the clubhouse, Lily ran out to meet them before the van even stopped. "Well?" she demanded, hands on her hips in a tiny imitation of Elena. "Are you staying?" "For now," Marcus said. "And maybe longer. Somewhere else. But I'm not disappearing." She narrowed her eyes. "You promise?" He thought of Monica's words, of Reaper's steady presence, of Elena's quiet fierceness. "I promise I'll try as hard to stay as you did to keep from freezing," he said. Lily considered that, then nodded. "Okay. We have time for Disneyland in the game, then." As afternoon slid toward evening, Marcus helped Elena clear dishes, watched Axel show Savannah how to ride a small bike in the lot, and listened to Reaper on the phone, his voice low as he spoke to Monica about doing this right, not halfway. He wasn't adopted. He wasn't placed. His future wasn't guaranteed. But for the first time since his world fell apart, there was a plan. People. Steps. Something more than survive until tomorrow. That night, lying in the guest room bed, he stared at the ceiling and whispered into the quiet, just loud enough for himself. "I'm not a problem. I'm a person." And somewhere, in a small house in Monterey Park, a couple read an email from Monica about a 12-year-old boy who gave away his last warm coat, and looked at each other with the same thought. "We have room." The call came 3 days later, while Marcus was washing dishes at the clubhouse sink. He'd fallen into something that felt almost like routine. Wake up in the guest room, eat breakfast with Lily and whoever was crashing at the clubhouse, help Elena with chores, play mechanic games with toy trucks, pretend not to notice when Reaper made phone calls in hushed tones on the porch. It wasn't his life, but it was a life. And that was more than he'd had a week ago. The phone rang. Elena, elbow deep in laundry, gestured for Reaper to grab it. He answered with his usual gruff tone. "Yeah." Marcus watched from the corner of his eye as Reaper's expression shifted, surprise, then something careful and controlled. "Hold on," Reaper said into the phone. He lowered it, looking at Marcus. "It's Monica. She wants to talk to you." Marcus's stomach dropped. His hands were still wet, soapy water dripping onto the floor. He dried them quickly on a dish towel Elena tossed his way. Reaper handed him the phone. Marcus pressed it to his ear. "Hello." "Hey, Marcus." Monica's voice came through, warm but businesslike. "You sitting down?" He wasn't, but he pulled out a chair at the table and sat. "Now I am." "Good," she said, "because I've got news, and I want you to hear it without freaking out." His heart hammered. "Okay. The family I mentioned? The couple in Monterey Park?" Monica paused. "They want to meet you." The words hung in the air like something fragile. They what? Marcus managed. They read your story, Monica said. Not the whole thing, just what I shared. About your mom. About the coat. About how you've been handling yourself at the clubhouse. And they want to sit down with you. See if there's a fit. Marcus's throat went tight. When? Tomorrow, Monica said. If you're ready. No pressure. If you need more time. No. Marcus cut in, surprising himself. I'm ready. He wasn't. Not even close. But waiting felt worse. All right, Monica said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. I'll pick you up at 10. Dress however you feel comfortable. They're not looking for a performance. They just want to meet the real you. The real him. The kid who'd been sleeping in alleys 3 weeks ago. The one who still woke up some nights expecting sirens or the sound of someone yelling at him to move along. Okay, he said. I'll be ready. When he hung up, the room was silent. Lily, Savannah, Elena, Reaper, even Axel, all eyes were on him. Well? Lily demanded, hands gripping the edge of the table. They want to meet me, Marcus said. His voice sounded far away. Lily's face lit up. That's good, right? Yeah, Marcus said slowly. I think so. Elena crossed the room and squeezed his shoulder. This is good, sweetheart. Really good. Reaper said nothing, but his jaw was tight, like he was chewing on words he didn't want to say out loud. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, running scenarios. What if they took one look at him and changed their minds? What if he said the wrong thing? What if he wasn't what they were hoping for? A soft knock interrupted his spiral. Come in, he called quietly. The door cracked open. Reaper stood there, backlit by the hallway light, arms crossed. You good? Reaper asked. Can't sleep, Marcus admitted. Reaper stepped inside, leaving the door halfway open. He leaned against the dresser, not sitting, not crowding. You scared? He asked. Marcus nodded. What if I mess it up? Then you mess it up, Reaper said. But you won't. How do you know? Reaper exhaled slowly. Because you're the kind of kid who gave his coat to a freezing stranger. That tells me you've got a good heart. People who've got good hearts don't mess up by being themselves. Marcus sat up, pulling his knees to his chest. What if they decide I'm too much work? Then they're not the right people, Reaper said. And we find someone who is. You keep saying that, Marcus said. But what if there's nobody? Reaper was quiet for a beat. Then he moved to the edge of the bed, sitting down carefully like he was afraid of breaking something. You know why I stopped that night? Reaper asked. When I saw you giving Lily that coat. Marcus shook his head. Because I saw someone do what I didn't, Reaper said, voice low. When I was young, I watched a kid get left behind. Friend of mine. His dad took off. His mom couldn't handle it. Nobody stepped up. And I didn't either, because I was scared and stupid. His hands clenched into fists on his knees. That kid ended up in places no kid should go, Reaper continued. And I've carried that with me every day since. So when I saw you, skinny, shaking, giving away the one thing keeping you warm, I wasn't about to walk past that. Not again. Marcus's chest felt too tight. I'm not your second chance. No, Reaper agreed. You're your own chance. But maybe you're mine too. They sat in the quiet for a moment. Outside, a car passed. Somewhere down the hall, Lily murmured in her sleep. What if I don't fit anywhere? Marcus whispered. Reaper looked at him, eyes steady. Kid, you already fit here. Tomorrow's just about finding you somewhere you can grow bigger than a clubhouse guest room. Marcus nodded, throat too thick to speak. Reaper stood. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's gonna ask a lot of you. Reaper. Marcus called as he reached the door. Yeah. Thank you. For stopping. Reaper's expression softened in a way Marcus had only seen when he looked at Lily. You made it easy, kid. The door clicked shut. Marcus lay back down. This time, sleep came a little easier. Morning arrived too fast and too slow at the same time. Elena helped him pick out clothes from the donation box. A button-up shirt that was only slightly too big, jeans that actually fit, and sneakers someone had scrubbed almost clean. She even combed his hair, which he hadn't let anyone do since his mom. Lily watched from the couch, swinging her legs. You look fancy, she announced. I look nervous, Marcus corrected. That too. Monica arrived right at 10 in a small sedan that smelled like vanilla air freshener and hope. Marcus climbed in, waving at Lily and Elena on the porch. Reaper stood a little farther back, arms folded, watching like a sentry. The drive to Monterey Park felt both endless and instant. Monica filled the silence with easy chatter about the neighborhood, the family's dogs, the good taco truck 2 blocks over. But Marcus barely heard her. His mind was a loop of what-ifs. They pulled up to a small house on a quiet street. It had a tidy lawn, a porch with 2 rocking chairs, and a mailbox painted to look like a birdhouse. Wind chimes hung near the door. It looked normal, safe, like the kind of house where people remembered to water plants and always had snacks in the pantry. "You ready?" Monica asked, putting the car in park. Marcus took a shaky breath. "No, but let's go anyway. If you've ever been nervous about being wanted, you're not alone." Like and subscribe so stories like Marcus's remind you that second chances are real. Monica led him up the walkway. Before she could knock, the door opened. A woman stood there, maybe late 30s, with kind eyes and a nervous smile. She wore jeans and a soft blue sweater, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Behind her, a man, probably her husband, hovered, hands in his pockets, looking equally anxious. "Hi," the woman said. "You must be Marcus." He nodded. "Yeah. Hi. I'm Claire," she said. "This is my husband, Ben." Ben gave a small wave. "Hey, Marcus." Monica gestured. "Mind if we come in?" "Of course." Claire stepped aside, and they entered. The house smelled like cinnamon and coffee. Pictures lined the hallway. Trips to Yosemite, a wedding photo, a golden retriever wearing a birthday hat. In the living room, 2 dogs, one golden, one scruffy mutt, immediately bounded over, tails wagging. Marcus froze. He'd never had a dog. "That's Biscuit," Claire said, pointing to the golden. "And that's Pickles." "Pickles," Marcus echoed. Ben grinned. "She came with the name. We couldn't change it." Pickles sniffed Marcus's hand, then licked it. Biscuit sat politely, tail thumping. "They like you," Claire said softly. They sat in the living room. Claire and Ben on the couch. Marcus in an armchair, Monica beside him on a smaller chair. The dogs settled at his feet like they'd known him forever. "So," Ben began, leaning forward. "Monica told us a little, but we'd love to hear from you. What's school like? What do you like to do?" Marcus hesitated. "I haven't been in school in a while. I used to like history. And reading, sometimes." "What kind of books?" Claire asked. "Adventure stuff," Marcus said. "Stories where people survive hard things." Claire's smile grew. "We've got a whole shelf of those. You're welcome to any of them." The conversation flowed easier than Marcus expected. They asked about his favorite foods, pizza, spaghetti, anything warm. What he missed most, having someone ask how his day went. What scared him, being forgotten again. He didn't mean to say that last part. It slipped out. Claire's eyes went soft. "Marcus, if you come here, we're not forgetting you. We're choosing you." His throat closed up. He looked down at Pickles, who had rested her chin on his shoe. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why me?" Ben and Claire exchanged a glance. "Because we've been waiting for someone like you," Ben said. "Someone who's been through hard things, but still has kindness left." Claire nodded. "Monica told us what you did. Giving your coat to a little girl you didn't know. That's not something you can teach. That's who you are." Marcus's vision blurred. He blinked hard. "We're not perfect," Claire continued. "We'll mess up. We'll probably ask too many questions and worry too much. But we promise to show up. Every single day. Even when I mess up?" Marcus asked. "Especially then," Ben said. "If someone ever believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself, don't take it for granted. Like and subscribe so more kids like Marcus find the families they deserve." After an hour, Monica suggested they wrap up. "Let Marcus think about it," she said. "No rush." Claire walked them to the door. "Marcus," she said gently, "whatever you decide, we're rooting for you." He nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. On the drive back, Monica glanced at him. "What do you think?" Marcus stared out the window. "They seem really nice." "They are," Monica said. "But do they feel right?" He thought about Biscuit's wagging tail, Claire's soft smile, Ben's easy laugh. The way they'd said, "When you come here," not "if." "Yeah," Marcus said quietly. "They feel right." Monica smiled. "Then let's make it happen." Back at the clubhouse, Lily pounced on him the second he walked in. Well, do you have a new house? Maybe, Marcus said. They want me. Lily's face split into a grin. Then, just as fast, it crumpled. Wait, does that mean you're leaving? Marcus crouched down. Not forever. Just to a place where I can go to school and have a room and stuff. But you'll visit? She pressed. He looked at Reaper, who stood in the doorway, watching. Yeah, Marcus said. I'll visit. Reaper nodded once. Permission granted. That night, lying in the guest room for what might be one of the last times, Marcus felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Not fear, not doubt, hope. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like something to survive. It felt like something to live. Reaper didn't say much the morning Marcus left the clubhouse for good. He didn't have to. The way he moved, slower, more careful, like every step was a choice, said enough. The sky over El Monte was pale and gray, the kind of California morning that couldn't decide if it wanted to be sunny or not. Marcus stood in the main room with his backpack on, the same one he'd carried when he had nothing, now filled with folded clothes, a toothbrush, a paperback novel Elena insisted he take, and a small folded photo Lily had drawn of the three of them holding hands. Lily clung to his arm like if she let go, he might disappear into smoke. She was still wearing his father's coat, but now it had a patch on the inside, a little embroidered heart Elena had sewn in, just for her. You're gonna call me, right? Lily demanded for the third time. Yeah, Marcus said. Monica said we can set up something regular. Like once a week. Once a week is not enough, Lily muttered. I need, like, every day. We'll start with once a week, Elena said gently, coming over to smooth Lily's hair. And you'll see how it goes. Axel stood near the door, arms crossed, trying to act like he wasn't watching. Danny pretended to scroll on his phone, but hadn't moved from the same spot in 10 minutes. The clubhouse felt quieter than usual, as if the walls knew something important was happening. A van pulled into the lot. Not Monica's this time. Claire and Ben stepped out, dressed in simple jeans and sweaters, nervous but smiling. They'd come for another visit the day before, this time to the clubhouse, bringing a container of homemade cookies and a stack of school supply notebooks. They'd stayed for dinner, listened to Reaper's gruff jokes, and watched Lily crawl into Marcus's lap like she was trying to memorize what it felt like. Now they were back with one more thing: space in their car, space in their home, space in their lives. Morning, Claire said, stepping inside. You ready, Marcus? He took a breath. Yeah. Not ready in the way people meant when they talked about having it all together. Ready in the sense that staying the same felt scarier than changing. Ben stepped forward, offering a small smile to Reaper. We'll take good care of him, he said. Reaper's jaw worked. You better. Ben didn't flinch. We will. Tension vibrated in the air, two very different worlds agreeing to share responsibility for the same kid. One built on patched leather and loyalty. The other built on rocking chairs and PDA emails. If you've ever taken your own safety and family for granted, someone like Marcus hasn't. Like and subscribe so more people see what quiet bravery really looks like. Reaper turned to Marcus. Got everything? Marcus nodded, fingers tightening on the backpack strap. Yeah. Elena stepped in and pulled him into a hug that smelled like laundry detergent and garlic bread. You remember what we talked about, she said into his hair. New house doesn't mean new you. You're allowed to bring all of you there, even the messy parts. He nodded against her shoulder. Thank you. For all of it. She squeezed tighter for a second, then let go, eyes shining. You earned every bit of what's coming next. Lily wasn't having any of the composed goodbyes. Tears streamed down her cheeks before he even bent down. I don't want you to go, she said, voice wobbling. It's going to be boring here without you. It won't, he said, crouching so they were eye level. You've got Savannah, and Reaper, and everyone else. They don't play trucks like you, she sniffed. He reached up and touched the collar of the coat lightly. You remember why I gave you this? Because I was cold, she said. Yeah, he said, and because I knew you'd need it for more than just that night. Same with this. He tapped her forehead gently. Me leaving doesn't mean I'm not still on your team. It just means we're playing on two different fields for a while. She frowned. thinking that through like it was a serious game plan. Do I still get to tell people you're my best friend? You better, he said, or I'm coming back just to argue. She gave a wet laugh and threw her arms around his neck. He hugged her back, feeling the solid weight of her, the warmth of the coat he'd once needed more than anything. Now she did, and somehow that felt right. When he finally stood, Reaper was the only one he hadn't said goodbye to. They faced each other in the middle of the room, as if the whole clubhouse had shrunk around them. You listen to them, Reaper said. Claire and Ben. You give them a chance to do right by you. I will, Marcus said. And you remember something, Reaper continued. You walking through that diner lot and giving Lily your coat? That wasn't luck. That was you deciding what kind of man you want to be. You keep deciding that. Every day, no matter where you sleep. Marcus swallowed. You really think I can do this? Reaper's answer was simple. You already did the hardest part. Stayed kind when the world didn't give you a reason to. The rest is just practice. He hesitated, then reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a small object. It was a keychain, metal, shaped like a tiny motorcycle, a little worn on the edges. This was mine when I was about your age, Reaper said. Somebody gave it to me when I thought I didn't matter. Told me, every time you think about disappearing, hold this and remember somebody's waiting for you to come back. He pressed it into Marcus's palm. Now I'm giving it to you, he said. You got two places now where people are going to be waiting. Here and there. He nodded toward the van. Marcus closed his fingers around the keychain, feeling the cool weight of it. I won't forget. Reaper's voice dropped. And if they ever hurt you, if anyone ever makes you feel like you don't belong. Reaper, Elena warned gently. I'm just saying, he growled. Then, softer, you call. You say where. We'll ride. The image of the bikes rolling up a quiet Monterey Park street made Marcus almost laugh. Almost. I hope I don't need that, Marcus said. Me too, Reaper replied. But you got it anyway. They walked him to the van. The lot felt weirdly quiet without engines roaring. Claire opened the back door, and Marcus climbed in, backpack on his lap, keychain still clutched in his hand. Through the glass, he saw Lily lift one of his drawings. Actually, her drawing of the three of them. And press it to her chest. The van pulled out slowly. As they rolled through the gate, Marcus looked back. Reaper stood in the center of the lot, one hand lifted in a brief, sharp wave. Elena's arm was around Lily. Axel pretended to frown, but his chin dipped in a nod. The gate closed, but it didn't feel like something ending. It felt like a door staying there, waiting, if he ever needed to knock again. The drive to Monterey Park felt different this time. The world outside wasn't just places he'd survived, they were neighborhoods he might actually live in. Go to school in. Ride a bike around without wondering where he'd sleep that night. Claire glanced back at him. You doing okay? Yeah, Marcus said. Then, more honest, mostly. A little scared. That's fair, Ben said from the driver's seat. We're scared too. Marcus blinked. You are. Of getting it wrong, Claire said. Of not knowing the right thing to say. But being scared doesn't mean we don't want this. It just means it matters. The house looked the same as before. Wind chimes, birdhouse mailbox, flowers in mismatched pots on the porch. But this time, when they opened the door, Claire didn't say, come in and visit. She said, come home. The word knocked the air out of him. Inside, small changes had appeared. A second toothbrush in the bathroom, still in its package. A brand new blanket folded at the end of the bed in a room that now clearly belonged to him. A poster of a dirt bike taped to the wall. A simple desk with a notebook and pencil laid out, like someone expected him to start homework any minute. We weren't sure what colors you like, Claire said, hovering in the doorway. We can change anything. Paint the walls. Put up new stuff. This is just a start. Marcus walked in slowly, fingers brushing the desk, the bed frame, the windowsill. Everything was solid. Nothing felt like it could be taken away in the night without warning. On the nightstand sat a framed photo, one Monica must have printed from her phone. It was him and Lily at the clubhouse, both laughing at something off camera, her drowning in his coat. We thought you might want that here, Ben said. So you know you don't have to choose between lives. You get both. Tension tightened in Marcus's chest. Not the bad kind. but the kind that comes before tears or laughter or both. If a story like this reminds you how far kindness can ripple, don't just scroll. Like and subscribe so more people remember compassion actually changes lives. The days that followed felt strange and wonderful and hard all at once. School was overwhelming at first. Monica helped enroll him in the nearest middle school. The first time he walked into a classroom again, backpack on, schedule in hand. He felt like everyone was staring. Some were. New kid, mid-year, rumors already starting about that boy who used to be homeless but lives with bikers, and some suburban couple now. But there were good things too. A teacher who slid an extra granola bar onto his desk during a long day. A kid named Jordan who asked, "You into comics?" at lunch and didn't flinch when Marcus said he didn't know much but was willing to learn. At home, Claire hovered at first, then relaxed. She asked about his day and actually listened to the answers. Ben helped him with math homework, making dumb jokes about fractions until Marcus rolled his eyes, but smiled anyway. There were rules. Curfew, chores, homework before TV. But the rules felt fair. Grounding, like rails on a bridge instead of bars on a cell. Some nights, lying in his new bed, Marcus would reach under his pillow for the keychain motorcycle. He'd roll it between his fingers and picture the clubhouse lights, the laugh that hid under Reaper's growl, Lily's messy ponytail, and bright grin. He called once a week like they'd promised. Sometimes more. Are they mean? Lily asked during one call. They make me eat vegetables, he complained. She gasped. That's terrible. He laughed. It's not that bad. Do you have friends? I think so, he said. I'm figuring it out. Good, she said. Because when we come to your school for your graduation, you better have a whole crowd cheering for you. The first time she said, when we come, not if, something inside him settled. Months passed. Seasons shifted in the subtle Southern California way, slightly cooler, then slightly warmer, missing the dramatic snow and leaves he'd only ever seen in movies. One afternoon, Claire came home with an envelope in her hand, cheeks flushed. What's that? Marcus asked, dropping his backpack by the door. She smiled, eyes shining. Official paperwork. The judge signed off. His heart jumped. Signed off on what? Ben appeared behind her, slipping an arm around her shoulders. On us, being your legal guardians. The room tilted, not in a bad way, but in a way that made everything feel both bigger and closer. You mean like? Like this is home, Claire said, voice thick. For real. Not for now. Not until they find somewhere better. You're ours, Marcus. If you want to be. He stood there, backpack slipping from his shoulder to the floor. For a second, he couldn't speak. Then the words rushed out all at once. I want to, he said. I really want to. Claire let out a breath that sounded like she'd been holding it for months. Ben laughed, a choked, disbelieving sound. They hugged in the hallway in a pile of arms and tears, and half-laughed apologies for crying so much. Later that night, when the house was quiet, Marcus sat on his bed with the framed photo of him and Lily in his lap. He thought about the cold sidewalk outside Eddie's diner, about a little girl shaking in a too-thin hoodie, about the moment he shrugged off his coat and wrapped it around her, not knowing anyone was watching. He thought about Reaper, standing in that diner doorway, watching a skinny, scared 12-year-old choose compassion over survival instinct. One small decision. One worn brown coat. And now, a room, a school, a family that had chosen him on purpose. A biker crew in El Monte who called every time a Rams game got exciting, just to argue about calls over speakerphone. He realized something then. The bikers had changed his life, yes. But his life had changed theirs too. Lily was braver now, less afraid of the dark, always telling new kids at the clubhouse. It's okay, my friend Marcus didn't have a home either, but look at him now. Reaper had softened at the edges, showing up at the community center on weekends with boxes of donated jackets because, apparently, we're in the coat business now. Compassion had started with one freezing night. It hadn't ended there. Marcus set the photo back on the nightstand and reached for his keychain. The little metal motorcycle glinted in the lamplight. Thank you, he whispered. To his mom, to Reaper, to Claire and Ben, to Lily, to the version of himself who'd been brave enough to care when it would have been easier not to. Outside, a car passed on the quiet Monterey Park street. Inside, the house creaked in the ordinary way of homes that expect people to come back. Marcus lay back, hands behind his head, staring at the ceiling. He wasn't a kid on a sidewalk anymore. He wasn't a ghost slipping between bus stops. He was a boy with a past that hurt, a present that healed, and a future he could finally imagine. And all because, on the coldest night of his life, he'd decided someone else's shivering mattered more than his comfort. Sometimes, the smallest kindness doesn't just warm another person. It lights up the road you didn't even know was waiting for you.